to share the morning with you on what feels like an important day. I was thinking about the panel as I was tucking my kids to bed last night, and my kids like to ask me, what my next morning is looking like. And I said, oh, well, I'm doing this panel for International Women's Day. And my daughter, Clooney, who's 5, said, well, that's a great idea. And my son said, right, of course. And when is International Men's Day? And it was a really wonderful moment for me to actually explain to Rosen why there is a day for women, and in a sort of child appropriate way, to really give him some context as to why there is a day for women, and why there isn't an International Men's Day. And it got me just stirring and thinking about just how critical it is that women are coming together, continuing to share experiences, continuing to share resources, and that's exactly what we're going to do today. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce myself and our panelists. I'm Devin Brooks, the CEO and founder of Sphere.guide. It is just a huge passion project and unbelievable business to be a part of at a time when we are all considering our well-being and our habits and our resources that shape us as people, as leaders every day. And I would love to go around with each of our panelists and let them talk a little bit about themselves. Katie, can we start with you? Would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what Talk Shop does, and then we'll move on to Natasha.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Katie Dunsworth-Riak, and I'm one of a few co-founders at Talk Shop. And yeah, we've tried to fill the white space in terms of the agency landscape and work with, I think, the word disruptive is maybe overused, but I think really progressive brands that are in a bunch of, interesting categories, from technology right through to different food products. And we're women led. I think we are like 98% women as a workforce, and have really tried extraordinarily hard to create just an organization that works not just for women. I think we've followed the lead of our team and ourselves, and what we like to see in terms of childcare and parity and representation, and being able to create investment opportunities and financial opportunities for our team. But that's really motivated us to be a good employer and a good group to work with.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie. And we actually have a number of people who have registered their teams to receive this after. So I'm really excited for them all to learn about Talk Shop and what you do. Natasha, can I hand the mic to you? Will you introduce yourself and a bit about what you do at Neon and B Corp?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Natasha. I am originally from Zimbabwe. I have been in Canada for 11 years now. So I'm really happy to be in the space and acknowledging that we're working on stolen lands of the unceded Musqueam and Squamish nations. I work at Neon, which is a product studio here in Vancouver. I'm head of product delivery, and we create products for people, digital products, and our mandate is our partners, our customers are the heroes, and we're here to tell their stories. I also have the immense privilege of being a network leader for the BIPOC network for B-Lab US and Canada in the last month. Neon as a company, we are actually going through our B Corp certification. And for those who don't know what a B Corp is, it's basically a company saying that we are here to do business for good. So we all need to pay the bills, we need to keep the lights on, but we need to do it not at the detriment of others and each other as well. So people first in everything that we do.
And any other way, it's just not very 2022, is it?
No, it is not. It is not 22, and it's essentially actually not even women centric. Like women, we don't do things just for ourselves. We look after everybody else. And then when we're lying on the floor nearly dead, it's like, oh, right. Yeah, no, I should have thought about me. So yes, that is true.
Thanks,
So,
Natasha. Jade, I'll hand the mic to you. Will you talk a little bit about introducing yourself and what's happening over at Yogu as the mother of yogurt?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm Jade. I'm the founder and CEO at Yogu. We make a dairy-free coconut yogurt. And, sort of just to go off what Katie was saying, I know the word disruptive has been very overused, but, being a woman in this manufacturing space, we actually manufacture all of our yogurts in-house. So to be able to have a team predominantly women in such a predominantly male space has been such an interesting journey. I learned so much every day. But yeah, we make coconut yogurt, but we also, serve as so much more for our community, for our customers. And I'm just so excited to be here with all of you.
Thank you, Jade. We are big fans of Yogu, all of us. I know that for sure. Got a few of those in my fridge at the moment. And Charisse, I'll hand the mic to you. Now, we know that you are a GM at Sphere. What did you do before Sphere?
So, hi everybody. I'm originally from the UK, but actually currently in Amsterdam. So, greetings from Europe. Prior to Sphere, I was actually working in the fashion industry for the past 13 years, mainly across Calvin and Tommy Hilfiger in the operational capacity. And yeah, I think 13 years in, I just wanted to do something that was more meaningful and impactful to the journey that I was on. So I transitioned to the startup world and initially actually also worked prior to Sphere at a beauty startup that was also women founded and really just resonated working in this environment with women-led startup businesses. So that's my kind of journey to Sphere.
And I take full responsibility for talking her out of quitting her 13-year career in fashion and going and working at her first startup. Little did she know I was grooming her to hire her at Sphere. Thank you so much, Charisse, Natasha, Katie, Jade. Before we jump into rapid fire questions that are just fun and chill and light to get us all warmed up, and for those of our attendees, we do have question and answer. You're going to see as well in the chat column along the side that we've called out Katie, Natasha, Charisse, Jade's Instagram handles and their companies. These women always have something brilliant to share. So if it's a quotable that you want to tag on Instagram, you have all the little bits and pieces that you need on chat. And as questions come up live for you, or if I missed the beat on something and didn't ask the question that you felt needed to be asked, then by all means, please throw it into chat or using the Q&A function, and we'll be able to loop you into the question. So if you want to ask the question anonymously, please do that. But if you want to share it yourself, then I'll actually call on you, invite you in as a panelist, and you'll be able to turn your video on and share the question yourself and direct it to the whole panel or any specific person. Before we jump in though, I wanted to just talk about the history of International Women's Day, because this is actually a long-standing day. And I think that it's important for us to sort of revisit where things began, and of course, the context and circumstance of International Women's Day is different than it was many, many years ago when it started around 1908. And so International Women's Day has been observed since the early 1900s. And of course, a time of great expansion and turbulence in the industrialized world that saw really a booming population growth and the rise of new ideologies and the rise of innovation and radical ideologies. But it was really in 1908, during the great unrest and critical debate that was occurring amongst women, where women's oppression and inequality was really spurring women to become more vocal and active through campaigning for change and really driving social movements. Then in 1908, 15,000 women marched through New York City demanding shorter hours, better pay, and voting rights. Fast forward to 2021, 22, and beyond, the world has changed a little bit. However, many in the younger generation may feel that all the battles sort of have been won for women, or that we've made huge advancements. And while we have, many feminists from the 1970s know all too well that the longevity and ingrained complexity of patriarchy means that there's much more to do, with women in the boardroom and becoming more ingrained and having greater equality and legislative rights, and an increased critical mass of women's visibility in huge and important roles in our everyday aspects of life, which there just was not 100 years ago in 1908 when IWD began. The unfortunate fact, though, is that women are still not paid equally 100 years later, over 100 years later, and of their male counterparts. Women are still not present in the numbers equal to in business or politics, and globally in education, health, and violence against women is still far more staggering than men. However, huge improvements have been made, and we are sitting at a time where we have more social movements, more platforms, more technology, and even more radical ideologies than we did in 1908. And so today, the conversation that we're really going to have is about what's important now. What are these women considering? How are these women supporting, nurturing, and working on themselves to impact their families, communities, workplaces, and world as women leaders? So have your notepads and pens ready. Here we go. We're going to first start with a rapid fire question series. Now, what does IWD mean to you? Natasha, I'll roll with you first.
I didn't know you were going to start with me. I think the most important thing for me, sorry, it's a day to celebrate each other, to celebrate myself, to not forget to celebrate myself, but just to celebrate each other, celebrate our sisters, and celebrate those who cannot celebrate as well. So there are people who live in situations where they can't be themselves, they can't, even think about themselves because of their domestic or political or geographical circumstances. So just thinking about women outside of our social circles, our environment, and what we're aware of. And yeah, I think that's it.
I love that. Thanks, Natasha. Katie, what does IWD mean to you?
I guess for me, it's the optimism that one day we'll get to the place where we don't have to have a special day, that we don't have to gender like female founder, female entrepreneur. I don't know what done looks like. I know that we're not anywhere close. And so, again, that's why we take such a close look at things like pay equity, parity, and things that just will allow women in our business, at least, to make those strides.
I love that. Thank you. And Jade, a couple of women you wanted to be like when you were a teenager.
I think back to the movie Blue Crush. There were all these surfer girls, and I wanted to be a surfer girl so bad. But like thinking back to those women, it's like they worked a part-time job, they had fun, they had community, and like, as silly as that movie was, although such a great movie, I think I just really, respected their drive, and I still want to be a surfer girl. So
I was going to say the follow-up question might still be the same. Cherise, what about you? Who did you want to be when you were a teenager? What women did you want to be like?
I don't know if this is going to reveal my age, but for me, I would say it was Baby in Dirty Dancing.
Oh, yes.
Just resonate, right?
100%.
you're going from that transition to a girl to a woman, and she finds her voice and who she is. And I think for me, it was just wanting to go on that journey and bloom into the flower that she becomes, and obviously have a hot man lift you up in the air at the end of the film.
Yes,
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
No.
Katie, how about you? And then Natasha.
I was like an old soul as like a kid. And so I went deep down a rabbit hole of loving Audrey Hepburn. Both, she was like an amazing philanthropist too, but I fell in love with her in Roman Holiday because I had cut my hair really awfully short. It was not cute. And she was rocking some cute hair. And yeah, love her.
Hair icon. Natasha, how about you? What were the women you wanted to be like as a teenager?
I'm gonna be like Charleston and just display my age, but at the same time, baby was not being put in the corner. Julia Roberts was doing her thing, and those, you know.
But
And
Julia Roberts from what? Like
Pretty Woman. Pretty Woman.
Right.
Pretty Woman. Sorry. Yeah, I thought you could read my mind. Pretty Woman, for sure. She went shopping, and you know, they put her down, and she came in, and she owned the room. So yeah.
Big mistake.
Yes, big mistake.
That is totally big mistake.
Yes.
Big.
Huge mistake. Exactly.
Oh my goodness, so good. Okay, so Jade, now who inspires you? So today, at this stage in your life, in your business, what women do you look to now as inspiring and motivating you?
I think my friends, you know, everybody has come from such different walks of life. And, you know, I think that the community that surrounds me right now, and they're all predominantly incredible women. Yeah, they inspire me. Everyday people inspire me.
Yeah, I love that. Charisse?
I feel like I'm going to steal your answer, but I would have said exactly the same thing. The women in my community, my friends, and even my mum's friends, just like having that community around you of women, and seeing what they've gone through, what you're also going through, and just kind of bouncing off of each other and lifting each other up.
Katie, I know my mom's in your list of women.
Literally wrote down your mom. I think because she gets better and better. And the reason that Jude is like such a badass is that I just think at every stage of her life, she has found that special combination of really enjoying like age and stage and what's going on, thinking more globally, like really trying to push conversations, make a difference. And that sounds kind of cliche, but like she's made such a huge difference in people's lives, and still be like an incredible mother. Like, God, I could get emotional. Like she really is. I mean, you know. And then I also think, you know, I look at friends that, you know, that I have, especially the ones that are in like social services or things where, you know, the pay, like the day-to-day exposure to sorrow is so high and the pay is so low, and their willingness to just like give. Makes me emotional.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Natasha, how about you?
The woman who inspires me actually is at the moment, and has been for a few months now, my 8-year-old daughter. And she inspires me to just be better, because she is very emotionally intelligent. She is comfortable in her skin. She speaks out, and she just inspires me to try to be a better person for her. Yeah.
I would totally add to that. My daughter, Clooney, who's 5, I feel the same way, Natasha. She just has such a deep sense of self. She is just unbreakable at 5 years old. Her view of self, the way she sees herself, her ability to articulate her own needs, and her just defiance against everything else that is not meeting those needs is just absolutely riveting, and sometimes difficult to be her mother.
Yeah.
Okay, so the song you listen to when you're trying to channel your strength, Jade.
Ooh, I've been actually listening to healing frequencies. So 528 hertz music is really calming, and that's my song.
Where do you find that? Just like, is that on?
I'll send you the Spotify playlist.
Oh,
It's
yes,
lovely.
please.
Mhm.
We'll throw it in the email as a follow-up, the Spotify
Okay.
playlist. Katie, I know you're gonna have a good one for this.
Well,
Your
all
guilty,
of
your guilty
lemonade.
obsession Instagram feeds.
What's that?
Your guilty obsession Instagram feeds.
Oh, Jesus. I thought you were gonna ask me the song one.
Do you want this? You can have the song too. You can have the song too.
Okay, this is like I have a real beef with like self-helpy, like, do you remember Rachel Hollis? Like, I just can't.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot with like toxic positivity, like Christian white women who, anyways. But I still follow her because I just like it is like a train wreck that I can't look away from. So that's probably one.
Mine is openly gay animals. I love that feed.
What?
It is just openly gay animals. It is not what it sounds like. It is just an absolute hysterical, like unabashed view of memes of whatever is happening politically, like major trends. And
right.
it's like completely unapologetic. Charisse, your guilty pleasure Instagram feed.
It's got to be British memes, just because whenever I'm homesick, I get to look at other people that just do random English things that only English people would do. So it makes me feel normal again.
Oh my goodness. Charisse had said that we need to do one of those TikTok comparisons of where she says all the annoying super Canadian things I say, and I say all the annoying super UK things she says. So the last 2 years have been a little bit robust, and certainly from where I stand, I've seen all leaders have a almost insurmountable volume of responsibility and considerations going through a really important time. And then you add to that, you throw women in front of all leaders. And we know that in households still where two people work, women are usually the primary parent or the first responding parent. And so you add the list of contemplations and responsibilities that comes with women in leadership. And I'd love to know, we'll start with you, Natasha. What over the last year have you been contemplating? And we're going to really focus and ground in on like what we've just experienced before we go to where we're headed next. So when you really contemplate the last 2 years, what have you observed be the most critical in leadership to support people in this last 2 years?
Mental health, 100%. Just at the beginning of the pandemic, and thank you, Sphere Platform. Mental health for sure is top of mind for me. And I think we have so many high functioning looking people out there who are not okay. So I think mental health is really important from leadership, and just being in a position where you speak about your mental health. It's leadership in professional settings, in social settings, because in any social setting, there's always going to be an alpha. In our homes, as we say, mothers or fathers or whoever, just anyone who's in a position to lead, who has anyone looking up to them, mental health is so important. And just being open about your state, your mental health state. If you're not having an okay day, it should be okay for us to say, you know what, I'm having a rough day. And even if you're pushing through, just acknowledging that things are not okay. I think that's really important. And more prominently for me in the last year, I think I have in my circle, in my family, and just in general observation, have noticed just the huge load or huge gap that there is in Black mental health in particular. And a lot of it is systemic. A lot of it is just, even for me growing up culturally, mental health was a luxury. It's just, it's a luxury to have any disease that's really related to your mental health. Anyone who is obviously suffering, everyone is so focused on the basic security needs of food and shelter. Mental health was just never really something that was considered. So
Natasha, can you speak to it for a moment? Because you blew me away last year when we connected on this. What was it like for you? Can you share the experience you had, what it felt like for you, and the steps that you took when you found your guide Crystal, and how that felt and why you were floored?
I think it was the most surprising thing. I think it was just the surprise that it was something I needed and didn't know I needed. So it was not something I'd ever considered. Paying attention to your mental health, or just even your brain and what's going on, your feelings, was something that was, if you have a bigger issue, I have, I don't know, ADHD, or I am bipolar, or I'm going crazy, or I'm depressed, or, and now I've realized just even there's varying degrees of depression, so right. I think it was just, and as I shared with you, it was, I was doing research for work and was, looking for guides just so I could see how the platform worked. And then stumbled upon, and my first surprise, to be honest, was just finding a Black female on the platform. And that was one of the first things of why am I actually surprised by this? And that's what made me start to think more about it. And then once I started to speak to her, it was initially just, I don't have a big issue, but what I realized is just being able to chip away at, a lot of our conversations start like, how's it going? Oh yeah, everything's fine. Oh yeah, everything's fine. Okay, so what can we talk about today? And I'll go, well, actually, and before you know it, no, everything isn't fine. But I was like, yeah, everything's fine. Things are going well. So I think it's just that realization that the sky doesn't have to be falling. It doesn't have to be a big thing for you to talk about. We were all talking about women in our community and our friends. They are an extended part of our mental health. Just being able to call your girlfriend and tell them things. And that's the chipping away that we all need to do so that the little things don't become a huge thing.
I love that phrase, chipping away. Katie, I'm throwing this your direction. What have you observed from your perspective? You have a team of a lot of women across Canada. How have you seen, and what are the early symptoms or early indicators that you think somebody needs a resource, or somebody needs more support, or somebody needs to be held as a leader?
Yeah. So I think like a very basic indicator is just time or lack thereof for, like, I don't even like the word self-care because I don't even know at this point what that even means. But I think what we heard from our team is that there was almost like this talk track of like, I'm in back-to-backs, and that idea that there's like literally not a second between a freaking meeting for you to like collect your thoughts or consider like what you might need to show up to bring to the next conversation. So I think time is a very important indicator of what you are probably missing. I think on the mental health thing too, like and I even looked at, like, I did a video today to promote this, and I was like, we have like a get it culture, and it's about like working hard. And, we've really had to like have some real conversations about that. I don't think we're like a hustle culture, but we're certainly a culture where we are, we like to perform, and I don't think you can perform when people aren't well. And so we've really tried to change like our language around that. And I think also very much to what Natasha was saying, like make it okay to not be okay. And we've booked in things like wellness days, which are literally like forced days that we have people take them off, but also just not allowing, but making, like, normalizing that can be something that is
making it a part of the experience. Yeah, so critical. And it is a beautiful contemplation as well, because when through the lens of women and through the lens of increased responsibilities, particularly where women are caregivers or parents, and that just becomes more and more supreme, and also more and more common, that there is not a breath between obligations. And then you see, anxiety, you see all the early symptoms of that.
And I don't know about you, Dev, but I think, like, one of the things for me when I'm the most stressed, like, and this is through my coach too, I've really started to become more aware of, like, where stress shows up for me. It is where there's a real lack of time. I'm rushed. I'm not able to be the best parent. I'm not able to be the best professional. And so, you not everyone has that luxury. And I really that resonated what you said, Natasha, about, like, a lot of, like, even the idea that your mental health is in not the best state can be a luxury when you're not just looking after sort of the basics, but that just being aware of the importance of having time to be able to show up as your best self, and what a luxury that is to have it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Jade, what about you? How has the last 2 years impacted you as a leader across the board?
So I think just the nature of the work from home and the lack of distractions, be it restaurants not being available to me, like going out in more social settings. And so that sort of forced pause allowed me to really go inwards. We were, I guess, when COVID happened, we were like a year and a half into the business, and, it's like a startup, it's super go, go, go. And then, you start to really lack in those areas of, like, self-care, if you want to call it that, but just, like, looking after yourself and your community around you. And so I think for me, that was a forced pause and a lack of distraction so that I could actually do that work. And so the past, like, 3 years have been so much deep diving, so much coming to terms with being okay alone and not, constantly looking for those distractions. And I think it's allowed me to be a better leader because I've been able to, have that time and space for that self-inquiry. And so I'm very grateful for the time.
And what did that look like when you started to work with your coach on Sphere? What kind of things were you orienting those sessions towards topically? Or where did you find there was a sense of reprieve from those sessions?
I remember when I found Sphere, I was totally out of my mind, like, busy, and just felt like a hamster on a hamster wheel, and I needed help. And, like, I had some really great mentors around me, but I just felt like me and my, busyness was just sort of annoying for them. So I was like, okay, let's go on Sphere and let's, like, take up someone's time who's, like, actually getting paid as a guide. Because, to your point, Natasha, you feel this guilt about these things. And so I connected with Ursula, a guide on Sphere, who I connected with right away. And, once again, it was that forced moment of pause for me to actually carve out 30 minutes in my day, no excuses, to show up for me. And, sometimes it was, I don't know what we're going to talk about, but you sure find something to talk about really quick. And, I do also agree, Natasha, with this desire and this need for us to all be a lot more transparent, because I think the common thread, which I found just within my community, is that, it has been hard for a lot of people, and to be able to have that open dialogue with them about your struggles and what you're going through, it just really furthers that idea that we are so connected and interconnected. And, why do we feel like we need to shy away from expressing this fullness of ourselves? So yeah, I'm very grateful for COVID. There's some not so greats about parts about COVID, but for the most part, I don't think I would have taken this really necessary time to really step back and look at things, and more importantly, look at myself.
It sounds like that's really resonating. I can see Becky has said, I had this exact experience too when I found my coach. I didn't know I needed it so much. And that's certainly a recurring theme in what each of you are saying, is this idea of time. Like, what are these indicators? Time, the feeling of busyness, the feeling of not being able to take a breath between obligations, which then makes you feel like you're out of integrity. You're not showing up and being present the way that you want to, i.e., you're not leaving people feeling the way you want them to feel, because you yourself are not entering each experience the way you want to feel. So it sounds like that's really resonating. Charisse, what have been some of the things for you? I know you're like a walker and you need to walk. What are some of the other things for you, aside from coaching, that are like, if I don't do this, if I let these things slip, then this compounds and starts to look like that?
Yeah, so I think obviously you mentioned I'm definitely a walker, and I have to walk to clear my thoughts or to gather my ideas. But I think for me, especially, it could even be my food habits. I notice a lot, especially when I get stressed, I have different food habits, and I notice that certain things are slipping, or if I'm so focused, I'll be acting a certain way. And also just exercise, like aside from, let's say, walking, like meditation and different things. I know the minute that I'm not caring about Charisse is the minute that I'm not focusing. I'm focusing on the wrong things. Like, I'm too focused and I'm too stressed on different things. So I think that for me is the minute I'm not taking care of me and not having me time, is the minute that I'm slipping. And not having that balance, which I think is sometimes a difficult thing to do, is to have that work-life balance.
How has working with your guide on Sphere surprised you?
I think it surprised me because, again, like for me, I really wanted to work with my coach from a personal perspective in terms of my work-life balance, and especially coming from fashion, it's a very fast-paced industry and everything is go, go, go. And you're thinking like 1-2 years ahead. So you're constantly never really living in the now. You're more always in the future, thinking far ahead. So I really was just like, and again, as a woman in that industry, you're always wanting to prove yourself that you're doing the right job, that your voice is heard. And I think one of the things for me that was really important to work with on my coach is actually self-awareness and communication, more from a perspective of my personal life, because I was always like, I have it in the bag. I'm a career girl. Like, I know what I want and I know where I'm going. But from a personal perspective, I was lost. I didn't really know where or what path I was going on this personal journey. And I think working with my coach, it's given me time to reflect and actually put out there what I want and ask for it and also receive it. But at the same time, to create a balance that's not just about work, that there's also that part that I'm giving myself happiness to also share with other people, and to start sharing my life not just with myself, but with a partner. And I think that's for me been the most beneficial part of coaching.
It's so important that we're not thinking about things in these like very sort of linear, narrowly focused verticals of, let's say, okay, so I'm a leader. I want to care for myself and my well-being as a leader. So that's really limited to my communication style and my conversations, when in actual fact, what we know is that all of these things are synonymous. What affecting us here is affecting us over here. And it's certainly what we see even in not just our consumer members on Sphere, but our teams. And Neon and Talk Shop are both Sphere for Teams members. We're really proud and excited to have them. And certainly, Katie, you've echoed that to me, how it was really important to your crew of founders and leaders and partners at Talk Shop to be able to open up resources that weren't so narrowly focused.
Yeah.
Why was that?
Yeah, I think that very much what you said, like everything is interconnected, and that if you're struggling in your life, you're struggling in your professional life, and that you will show up as the best version of whoever you need to be when you have the tools to be well. And so, we really liked that about Sphere, that it was sort of a choose your own adventure in terms of what kind of guide you want and what kind of outcomes you're looking for. And I think the users, and it's been an interesting one, right? Because I would say we have like power users and super fans, and then I think for a long time there's people who are really skeptical or like, what even is this? Like, and then as soon as they do it, they're like such believers. But sorry, that was a little rambling answer.
Oh no, I always love hearing about like a skeptic turned fan. I love when people are like, what is this really?
And I think like Natasha can probably speak to this, but when it's like corporately paid for, I think that there is this thing of like, but like, how is it going to make it? And of course it's not making it back to anybody on our team, but like, there's almost that skepticism of like, maybe what
it is.
Yeah, it's really for me. Yeah.
And making it, it's not free. Obviously someone's paying for it, but then if it's a Teams thing and you're not necessarily paying for it, then it should be like, well, why not? Right. I'd love to, I'd like to be able to force it on everyone, but you can't. Because it's just, I think it's some of that stuff that you don't, there's still so much, I think stigma around it, like talking about yourself and your mind and the ideas, well, we're not saying you're schizophrenic. We're not, like, you don't have to be schizophrenic to talk about how you're feeling. You don't have to.
It's not about coming to the table with a label.
No, it's just about, I think anyone with a heartbeat, anyone, even if you're, 8 months, 8 months, you can't speak, but even if you're a toddler or if you're older, like everybody who says words, if words come out of your mouth, you should be able to talk about your feelings and just be able to chip away at it, right? So,
right.
I agree.
I loved, we were talking to Four Sigmatic the other day, who really proudly has now rolled out Sphere for their team as well. And a team member was doing a video and she was very candidly saying, I love this so much. This is why everybody at Four Sig should do this. But if you don't want to do it, it's fine. Just give your credits to me because I want more.
100%.
We really appreciated that. So really, the last couple of years, we have seen leadership impacted on so many levels, from the abundance of responsibilities to having to really consider and go back to the drawing board on our habits and resources. And it's like not a one and done process, right? What I'm hearing from all of you is that this is again and again and again about constantly going back to the drawing board, about constantly revisiting, am I giving myself the space and time? Am I creating buffers? Am I resourcing myself? Am I using those resources? Okay, why not? What's in the way? How do I remove that obstacle? Mm-hmm. So as we look to the future, how does leadership need to look different as we head into, a continuingly uncertain future? And I don't say uncertain in an anonymous way, but I think in the old world, what used to happen was there was this sort of ignorant and blind certainty around the way things were going to look, how companies were going to function, about what leaders needed to look like, sound like, when the reality is, literally for the first time ever, we're now seeing emotional intelligence, creativity, and cognitive flexibility emerge as some of the top skills and traits of leaders for the first time in the history of the World Economic Forum study, which is sort of blasphemy. But from your perspectives, what I'm really curious is, we know that the planet and humanity are synonymous. We need each other to innovate, to continue with these radical ideologies. We know that women are an inherent part of creating peace, creating safety, creating circular economies and circularity for humankind. So looking to the future now, what do you think is important? Jade, we'll start with you in terms of how we might define a leader. So let's anchor it down to just a few key words. If you were going to anchor it to a few key words that you think are really important for leaders to carry forward, to cultivate, what would some of those words be for you?
You know, just like from my experience, you know, I'm like 28, which for me is sometimes a hard thing to grapple with as a leader, because I feel like I'm not even like worthy at some moments to like be in this position. But then, you know, through taking that pause and really like, you know, doing a lot of work on my own self-worth, you know, I think authenticity is so important. So that's going to be like one of those pillars. You know, it's always looked one way. And I think for me, this sort of guiding principle has always been, how can I, you know, draw outside the lines? How can I go left when others are always going right? And so that, you know, has ultimately led me to where I am today. But, you know, through that also, I have a team that's watching me, you know, make these really hard decisions. And I just think that, yeah, authenticity is so important. And then also transparency. Like, I just love what everybody is sharing in on this conversation. Like, we have this sort of like safety around us where we feel like able and comfortable enough to share these sort of like fears of that we have and these shortcomings. And I think that the more that we do that, just like the more this conversation and acceptance from those around us, you know, they'll just feel more comfortable to share these things. And I think that coaching, like going back to what Sphere, you know, does and has done for so many of us here on this panel, it just like allows you to really take that moment and that pause to really hone in on yourself and, you know, look inwards. And I think that there's so much beauty that comes from just being completely vulnerable with those around you.
Thank you so much, Jade. Natasha, how about you? What are some of the words? We'll go to Katie and then Sharice.
Just as you said that, I started to think my grandmother growing up was very religious, and she had a sticker in her bedroom that said, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." And I think that's just, if everybody acts that way, then it's a flow-on effect.
Katie, go ahead. Thank you, Natasha.
Yeah. I think compassion is a big one. I just think that we don't necessarily think of that as a trait of a leader. And I think actually the best leaders that I think of have the most compassion. I really feel like listening, you know, we literally, the business that I'm in is called Talk Shop. A lot of talking and not a lot of listening. And when you listen to understand, that it can really shape things in a different way. And then action. And I think that, you know, further to the talking, think of this as a parent where I'm like, my actions are everything, my words are nothing. My kids get talked at all day long. It's like what you do that will teach them. And so I've just seen that more and more again in leaders that I admire, is that they don't tell anybody, they just do it. And
yeah, I love that. And participants, I want to see your words. So drop your words in as we share Sharice's. I'd love to see them coming up in chat, and we'll share some of them and may call on you. Thank you, Katie. Sharice?
I would say for me, openness or empathy. And I think women in general by nature are very empathetic, but as we kind of shift and we've discussed mental health, and there's a lot of different things that we've also seen during COVID where people are at home and there's different things going on in their backgrounds. I think it's really resonates that especially the Fortune 500 companies or these bigger corporate companies that are predominantly male driven, especially from their leaders, that they will need to shift to have an empathy or to have an openness, because especially as we move to a hybrid model of working from home and working in an office, that there's certain things that happen in isolation that don't necessarily that you would maybe see when you have that interpersonal human connection, that I think that we'll need to be a lot more self-aware of as leaders, because it's not there physically for you to see. And then I think my second word would probably be either flexibility or agileness, because again, like even for me, when I observe the Gen Z, like there's so much that happens at a rapid pace, and especially as we see social media and even like, let's say Apple, with all of the new gadgets and different things that come out, we move at such a rapid speed at the moment. And also with what we've seen with COVID, we all had to pivot 180 to a different way of working, a different way of interacting with each other. And I think it's just really being able to navigate and being able to bring on board that team, because you really like the foundation of the ship that you're steering. And it's being able to just lead them through this time when there is a lot of movement that we just don't know.
Absolutely. And when you think about where each of you are now in terms of, and to distill the word leadership for a moment, because again, it can be thought of as certain positions, like Jade, to your point. Well, is a 28-year-old worthy? And like, absolutely, because you have the responsibility. You are caring for people, you are guiding and supporting people on a team. The same is true for people in families. The same is true for people in community. So this idea of leadership is much more broader and much deeper than just being distilled down to, an age or a number of years of life experience holding a specific role or title. And it's really actually about how we look at ourselves, right? So do we view ourselves as a leader? And if we do, why is that? And if we do, then what does it mean about the responsibility we view that we have in the world? And I'd love to know, what are, one or some of the key moments that have shaped you now as a leader? So not you 5 years ago or 10 years ago, but what have been some of those defining or milestone moments that have sort of shifted you to this moment and where you are now, how you're approaching your leadership now? Katie, we'll start with you.
I think one of the ones that has shaped me, and it was like nothing really to do with what I'm doing now, but when I was young, sort of to what Jade was saying, like, I was 24 and I had no experience, and I actually got on Oprah and then got a television show and a book deal. And it was like a very crazy couple of years. And I remember when we got the opportunity to do this show, we were with with a production company that had like another professional like actress who was also pitching a show, and our show got picked up and hers didn't. And I remember the executive producer, and at the whole time I had this business that I Talk Shop that I'm in now. And I was like, well, and I'm very much like a yes person. So if an opportunity comes on, I was like, well, I'll just do a TV show and like run this business on the side. And I remember her being so angry at me that I would like be on set on my phone, or that I wasn't like fully committed to being like, I don't know, like a professional TV host. But I was also 24 and I did not know what I was doing. Anyway, I just really felt like, and so I remember getting like pulled into her office, and the network had sent notes and she had notes, and it was basically like, everything about you is like not okay. And like my voice and what I like, and I'm a pretty, like, I don't give a lot of fucks about a lot of things. And I, at that time, was like,
your best quality.
I'm like, I don't know. That's like literally what my voice sounds like. So I'm not sure what to tell you. But I feel like from that experience, what I like how it defined me is that I just really compartmentalized, and I was like, yeah, in like dumb Canadian TV land, I'm not great. but like in bigger, like being awesome land. I think I am. And I feel like I was almost motivated maybe a little bit by that experience to find success in another way. Yeah. But I think about that all the time. I think about that all the time, where it was sort of like an angry woman who was just like, and I'm not putting that out as like, it could have been an angry person, but just was really like trying to saw something in me that she didn't like that and just, anyway.
It is interesting though, and I appreciate your stop. It could have been an angry anyone or an angry person. And I don't know that this experience has been true for you, Natasha, Charisse, Jade. But certainly when I think back to my last 15 years of leadership and entrepreneurship since I was 20, most of my actually most difficult moments have been with women, and not in a lacking camaraderie or not, just because the flip side is that almost all of the best shit that has happened to me has been because of women as well.
Totally. Yes.
Right. It's super interesting because actually all of the moments where I've felt like you felt in that moment, Katie, were women like often 20 years my senior. Like generationally different, and holding what felt like holding me to an outdated narrative or an outdated view. Let's roll over to you, Natasha.
Yeah, I was gonna say, for me, I think for me, I've been in the IT space for 20 something years, over 20 years. And I've been a woman in this space for a really long time. So quite often in my profession, I would almost always be one of the very few, if not the only woman in the room. And for that, as I said earlier, I'm from Zimbabwe. So I immigrated from Zimbabwe in my early 20s and moved to New Zealand for 12 years. And so for me, there's the added complication of, one, you're female in an industry that you're not. Secondly, you're Black. Third, you're African. So it's just all these things, all these labels are just putting you one notch below everybody else. And it's always a constant, you always have to prove to be worthy before you're considered to have a seat at the table, whatever that table is. And then once you're there, it's, the surprise that you're there. So this is something that is a constant struggle. And when I said earlier, one of the things that my husband and I make a real effort with bringing up our kids and them. And one thing I see as a light at the end of the tunnel is the acceptance I see in my oldest is 8, turning 9, is when I highlight things like, oh, Michelle Obama or Chimamanda or all these, for her, it's like, okay, so what? Like she doesn't see it. For her, so I have hope that yes, we have all these struggles, and as Katie, that's terrible. Like, why do they pick you if they had all these things to nitpick at you, right? It's ridiculous. So it's like I just see the hope in that. I think we're headed in the right direction with, and I mean, everyone here who said you had kids, if you're already thinking about your mental health, it means you're thinking about theirs, and that's the foundation. I've said to a few people, like if my kids end up only, and I'm not knocking anyone here who works at McDonald's, just gonna say, but if my kids, that's all they end up doing, like just working in a regular job, and that's what they want to do for the rest of their lives, and they're in a good mental state, that is 100% I've done my job and I've done a great job, rather than being in a high-powered position and being stressed and being angry at some person who's had this amazing opportunity to be on a TV show from Canada, and all you can nitpick is how she sounds or how she laughs. This is ridiculous. And for me, it was always
so much though. The mental health for our kids is going to be the biggest struggle.
It's the biggest thing, just being, because these things are going to happen. You're always going to have someone who looks at you to see that you're less than. You're always going to have someone who, the unconscious or conscious bias or whatever it is, it's always going to be there. It's just how you deal with it that's going to make you stand out from anybody else. So, yeah. Sorry, I think I went on a complete tangent, but
no, it was beautiful. I loved every minute of it. Whenever I think about that idea of sort of like taking that resistance, I always think about Kanye West, and of course his documentary just came out. But Jade, what have been your defining moment or moments?
Hmm. It was really simple. I've been thinking about this, and just like a couple months ago, like I said, I struggle every day with just, this idea that like I can be a leader. And, it was just this very simple moment where one of my staff came to me and, he needed to pay his bills, and, he wanted to talk about his salary, even though he had just sort of joined the team. And like, deep down, I was like, oh, well, you accepted the job offer. Like, you should probably be okay with it. But instead, like, was able to really be present for him, and, just actually taking the time to consider like some alternate options for how we could actually like, help this person out. And I guess like, just seeing that ripple through his life, and therefore like giving him less anxiety about paying his bills and all these other things, and being able to show up for his community and to be of service to them because of the no longer burden of these financial things. Like, that was just so simple for me to see how like all I need to do is just be present for this team. I don't need to try to be anything else. And I think that is what I'm starting to really like focus in on, is that like it is just so simple. To your point, Natasha, our worth isn't defined by our productivity or the accolades or any of these things. Like, at our birthright, like we are worthy. And this is just so important, and has been something that I've definitely been contemplating a lot lately.
Thank you, Jade. Cherise?
I think for me, there's kind of one quote that I definitely live by, and that's I think you join because of the company, but you leave because of the people. And I think I definitely resonate with that. And so I think throughout my entire career or experience, I've definitely looked at my peers, my bosses and the leaders, and just kind of really had a look to where I thrived and where I haven't thrived. And I think there's this particularly one incident where there was something that somebody said to me that was completely inappropriate, but obviously as a woman, you kind of have those things that you face on a day-to-day basis. And I think at that point, I was the person that actually had a voice, and I said something. And from that, you actually then, or I found out that many other people had had the same experience, but just nobody had had that voice to be able to say, you know what, this isn't okay. And I think for me, that's been one of the things that's been really important, is if I can be a leader that has a voice, to also impart some of that to the people that work for me, to give them also a voice, but also to show them what a leader can look like in a different way to some of the leaders that we've seen. That for me, I think would be the key thing, that if I can say that I've done a good job, that would be it for me.
That's so beautiful. And I mean, I feel like you and I were just talking about this in a way yesterday, even with like when we think about, okay, what do we want the next couple of months to look like in terms of objectives? What do we need to hit? What are we aiming for? And then it's like, okay, well, how are we going to make sure that we're going to take care of ourselves to get there? Because to your point, Katie, and that's what's been, I love so much about hearing about your journey in leadership at Talk Shop, which is like how your culture has evolved. And but still, you can still own the like get it philosophy.
Yeah.
And get it doesn't have to mean get it and sacrifice your
Get
health.
it can mean get a nap.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Get that nap.
Yeah.
Get your
Get
nap.
that nap.
Yeah.
And I think this is just it, isn't it? It's what I'm hearing from each of you, and even in the words that we use, authenticity, going left when others go right. So like having audacity, working with intuition, having compassion, being present, all of these things are cultivated not by somebody who is stretched thin, can't take a deep breath, doesn't feel good or well inside. All of these things are cultivated by someone, anyone who is taking care of themselves, trying to get good sleeps, being mindful about what they put in their body whenever they can, and being conscientious about, you know, who are the people they're spending the most time with, how they're communicating, what pace feels good and also allows them to accomplish what they want to accomplish in the world. Like, it's, these words are cultivated through somebody who cares for themselves. So not this like janky sort of Instagram self-care that, you know, we hear about and that Katie alluded to at the beginning, but like real self-regulation. That's the difference, right? Which is through the lens of responsibility of self-governance.
Yeah.
I think about as we prepare to sort of wrap and honor time, is what we wrote on Instagram: without the leadership and participation of women, we will not achieve lasting peace. And without the stability of peace, we will not achieve sustainable development. We started Sphere because this is our sneaky little way of changing the world. Because to change the world, we must first change ourselves. And this is why we do what we do every day. This is what moves and motivates our team. This is why we build the product we build. This is why we're in the business of coaching, of critical thinking, of self-regulation and self-governance. It is that simple. To change the world, we must first change ourselves. I'm so grateful that each of you were able to attend today, because going into today's call, I have the privilege and fortune of knowing a bit about each of your stories. And it is through story sharing that we're able to continue to inspire each other, because it ain't easy. We do get hit with these moments where, you know, we're bopped down, we're met with disdain, or somebody doesn't believe that we deserve an opportunity that we've earned, that the market doesn't feel ready for something that we're bringing. We're going to meet resistance all the time. It's just it's magnetic, right? Like resistance is a part of life and a part of the human experience. And it's why inspiration is so important. It's why story sharing is so important, because we see ourselves in each other. We are definitely going to be pouring some of the things that you've said into a follow-up to our all of our registers and those who were hoping to see the video. I wanted to just thank each of you for your time. Thank you for trusting Sphere in the many ways that you found us, with your own growth and experience, because it all starts with each of us. I know that the whole team is so proud to be able to serve both individuals and teams, and of course we'll be sharing some details about how you can access that if you have participated in the call. I'm seeing little thank yous come in. Thank you so much, Nish. And really, each of you are doing such service in the world. Talk Shop, Neon, Yogu, B Corp, all companies that are making an impact, all companies that I look to and am inspired by, the integrity with which you make decisions and move through the world. I'm deeply moved by each of you, inspired by each of you. So thank you for your time. Happy International Women's Day. You will get this recording. It'll be all neat and tidy so you can share it with your teams. Is there anything that you wanted to each say before you peace and love out? Awesome.
Thank you, Dev. Thank you so much, Team Sphere, for putting this all together and holding so much beautiful space for all of us.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you everyone on the call for listening to us and letting us ramble on and share our wisdom. And it is, somebody said that this was their self-care for today, and that's 100% right. It was, yeah.
Thank you, participants. Thank you, panelists. We'll be sending a recording in a follow-up email. Everybody, happy International Women's Day. Appreciate you all. Have a beautiful day.